On Christmas morning, my girlfriend threw a jewelry box I'd spent 3 months making into the trash and called it junk. She didn't even open it all the way, didn't see what was actually inside, just tossed it like it was nothing. I'm David, 37, and I work with wood, but not the kind of stuff you find at Home Depot. I'm talking museum-quality pieces, hand-carved inlays, rare hardwoods, the kind of work that takes hundreds of hours and costs thousands when it's done right. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I'm damn good at it. My girlfriend Monica and I had been together for 3 years at that point, and she worked in finance, made good money, had that corporate lifestyle going with a nice apartment downtown and expensive taste in everything. She never really got what I did, and to her, working with your hands was something you did when you couldn't get a real job. She'd make little comments, nothing huge, just enough to sting. Like when her friends came over and asked what I did, she'd say I was figuring things out or between projects, never that I was an artist, never that I was a craftsman, just vague enough to make it sound like I was unemployed. I let it slide because I loved her, or I thought I did, but maybe I just got used to being treated like I wasn't quite enough, like my work didn't matter because it didn't come with a corporate salary and benefits package. For Christmas, I wanted to make something special, something that would show her how much I cared, something she couldn't buy in any store. I spent 3 months on a jewelry box made from walnut and maple, two of the most beautiful hardwoods you can work with. Every surface had hand-carved details, inlaid patterns that caught the light differently depending on the angle, and I designed hidden compartments with magnetic locks. The kind of craftsmanship where every joint is invisible and every surface is smooth as glass. The kind of thing you'd see in a gallery with a five-figure price tag. Inside the main secret compartment, I put a beautiful pendant, silver and moonstone, delicate and meaningful, something I thought she'd treasure. I'd worked on this thing late into the night for weeks, and my hands had calluses on top of calluses, but it was worth it, or so I thought. I wrapped it carefully, and Christmas morning came with the whole setup, tree with lights, candles on the table, and I'd made breakfast, eggs Benedict, her favorite. I handed her the box, and she opened it, and her face fell immediately. I saw it happen, that moment when disappointment just crashes over someone's expression, like when a kid opens a present expecting a PlayStation and gets socks instead. She picked up the jewelry box like it was something she found at a thrift store, turned it over in her hands, didn't even look closely enough to see the details, the inlay work, the hidden seams, the way the grain flowed perfectly from one piece to another. She asked if it was handmade and why it wasn't from Tiffany, and her voice had this edge to it, like I'd personally offended her by not spending enough money, like the hours didn't matter, like the skill didn't matter, only the brand name on the box. I tried to explain, told her how long it took, how much thought went into it, how there were secret compartments she hadn't found yet, how there was something special hidden inside if she'd just look. She wasn't listening. She stood up, walked into the kitchen, and I heard the trash can lid open and then close. That sound, that hollow thud of the lid closing, echoed in my head. I sat there for a second, not really believing it, not processing what had just happened. Then I heard her on the phone in the other room, actually laughing, and she told whoever was on the other end that I'd given her a wooden craft project for Christmas, like something from a high school shop class. Then she said it. I don't want handmade junk. That word, junk, after 3 months of work, hundreds of hours, a piece of my soul carved into wood. It hit different. Something broke inside me in that moment, not in a dramatic way, just quietly, like a thread snapping. I didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't try to make her understand because what was the point? She'd made her position clear. I just walked into the kitchen, pulled the jewelry box out of the trash, and wiped off the coffee grounds that were stuck to it. It still smelled like cinnamon from the candles, and the wood was cool in my hands, solid and real, more real than anything Monica had said to me in months. I wrapped it back up, put it in my car, and drove straight to Hendrick's Gallery downtown. Patricia owned the place, and I'd sold a few pieces through her before, small stuff like cutting boards and picture frames, but she knew my work and she knew what I was capable of. When I walked in, she could tell something was wrong, and I probably looked like hell. I handed her the box without saying much, and she unwrapped it carefully, her hands moving slowly over the surface, feeling the grain, the inlays, the joints, the way a real craftsman examines another craftsman's work, with respect and attention. Then she found the hidden compartment, the one Monica never bothered to look for, opened it, and saw the pendant inside. Her eyes went wide, and she told me this was museum-level work, not just a jewelry box, but an art piece, a complete story. She turned it over again, examining every angle and every detail. and then she said she needed to call Tom. Tom was an independent appraiser she worked with, the kind of guy who handled high-end estate sales and gallery acquisitions, the real deal. He came in an hour later and looked at the box for 20 minutes without saying a word, just examined it from every angle, opened and closed the compartments, felt the weight and the balance. Finally, he looked at Patricia and told her this could sell for 12,000, maybe even 15 if they found the right buyer. Patricia nodded, thought for a moment, and told me she wanted to price it at 10,500 for her New Year's collection as a luxury holiday art piece. She explained that pricing it slightly below Tom's estimate would create urgency with serious collectors while still reflecting its true value, and we'd split it 60-40, with me getting the 60%. I just stood there, trying to process it. $10,500 for the junk Monica threw in the trash, for the gift she didn't even fully open, for the pendant she never saw. Patricia must have seen something in my face because she put her hand on my arm and said that whoever didn't appreciate this didn't deserve my work. I nodded but couldn't really speak. 3 days later, the jewelry box was in the gallery window, front and center with a spotlight on it, and professional photography, showing every detail. There was a little placard that said luxury holiday art piece with the price in elegant script, $10,500, right there on the main street where everyone could see it. I didn't tell Monica, didn't say a word, didn't send her a picture, just let it sit there in the window for the world to see and let fate do its thing. 3 days after I put the jewelry box in the gallery window, Monica saw it. She was walking back from lunch with some coworkers, probably talking about her latest deal or whatever corporate thing she was working on, and she passed right by Hendrik's gallery. I wasn't there when it happened, but Patricia told me about it later, said Monica stopped dead in her tracks like she'd seen a ghost. She stood there staring at the window for a solid 5 minutes, and Patricia watched her from inside the gallery, watched her face go through about 10 different emotions. First confusion, then recognition, then shock, then something that looked like panic. Monica pressed her face closer to the glass, looking at the inlays, the wood grain, and then she saw the price tag. $10,500. Patricia said Monica's hand went to her mouth, and she just stood there shaking her head like she couldn't believe it. Then she saw the pendant inside, the one she never bothered to find, the one that was sitting in the secret compartment she never opened because she was too busy being disappointed. My phone started blowing up about 20 minutes later. Text after text after text, all in caps, all frantic. She wanted to know what the jewelry box was doing in a gallery window, why it had that price tag, why I never told her it was worth that much. She said it was hers, that I'd given it to her for Christmas, that I had no right to sell it without telling her. I let the messages pile up for a while, just watched them come in, and there was something satisfying about it, about knowing she finally understood what she'd thrown away. When I finally replied, I kept it simple and cold. The handmade junk found someone who appreciates it. She showed up at my apartment that evening, and I could hear her coming down the hallway, her heels clicking on the floor, that aggressive walk she did when she was pissed off. She knocked, and when I opened the door, she pushed past me without waiting for an invitation. She started yelling immediately, asking me what the hell I was thinking, demanding to know why I'd put her gift in a gallery, saying I'd embarrassed her in front of everyone who might see it. I just stood there and let her get it out, let her burn through all that anger, because I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, after about 5 minutes of yelling, her tone changed completely. She stopped mid-sentence, took a breath, and suddenly her voice got softer, and she said maybe she'd overreacted on Christmas, that she didn't really mean what she said, that the jewelry box was actually beautiful now that she thought about it. I almost laughed, because the switch was so obvious, so calculated. She wasn't sorry about hurting me. She was sorry about losing out on $10,000. She sat down on my couch like she belonged there, crossed her legs, and tried to smile at me, that smile she used when she wanted something. She started talking about how we'd been together for 3 years, how she'd supported my work even when it wasn't making money, how she'd let me use her apartment as a workspace when I needed it. Then she said it, the thing I knew was coming. I think I deserve a share of the sale, don't you? She tried to make it sound reasonable, like it was just common sense, said that technically it had been a gift to her, so legally she might have a claim to it. And besides, we were supposed to be a team. The fact that she'd already thought about the legal angle and had prepared this whole speech told me everything I needed to know. I explained to her very calmly that she'd thrown it away, that she'd called it junk, that she'd forfeited any claim to it the moment it hit the bottom of that trash can. I told her the jewelry box was mine now, my work, my art, and whatever happened with it was my business. She didn't like that answer. Her face hardened, and she went back to being angry, said I was being petty and vindictive, that I was punishing her for one mistake. One mistake, like those 3 years of little comments and put-downs didn't matter, like Christmas morning was just a tiny slip-up. I didn't argue with her, just asked her to leave, and after a few more minutes of trying to guilt me, she finally did. The jewelry box sold 2 days later. A private collector who specialized in artisan furniture and functional art pieces, the kind of guy who had more money than he knew what to do with. He paid the full asking price, $10,500, didn't even try to negotiate. Patricia called me that afternoon, and I could hear the excitement in her voice, told me the check would be ready in a few days, and that the collector wanted to know if I had more pieces available. I told her I'd need some time to create new work, but yes, I had ideas. She said the collector was already interested in commissioning something custom, that he was thinking around $12,000 for a larger piece, maybe a desk or a display cabinet. $12,000 for a single commission, more than I'd made in the last 6 months combined. My cut from the jewelry box sale was $6,300 after the gallery took their 40%, and it was the most money I'd ever made from a single piece. I deposited the check, and for the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about rent or materials or whether I could afford to keep doing what I loved. A few days after the sale, Monica texted me again, said she needed to talk, that she wanted to meet for coffee. I ignored it. She texted again the next day, said she thought we should put the relationship on pause for a while, that she needed space to think. I knew what she was doing, knew she expected me to panic, to beg her not to leave, to promise I'd change. Instead, I just replied with one word. Okay. That wasn't the response she wanted, and I could tell because the next text came fast, asked if that was really all I had to say, if I didn't want to fight for us. I didn't respond. For the next week, she kept trying, kept texting, kept calling, and I watched it happen from a distance like I was watching someone else's drama. Then she showed up at my apartment again, but this time she wasn't angry, she was crying. She said she'd been thinking about everything, that she realized she'd made a mistake, that she'd taken me for granted. She said she wanted to try again, that she'd changed, that she understood now what my work meant to me. She was saying all the right things, hitting all the emotional notes, and if this had been a month earlier, I might have believed her. But I asked her one question. If the jewelry box had sold for $50 instead of $10,000, would you be here right now? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it, and I saw the truth in her eyes before she even tried to lie. She stammered something about how that wasn't the point, how it was about us and our relationship, but we both knew it was exactly the point. She didn't care about me or my work or what I tried to give her. She cared about what it was worth, about being associated with success instead of what she saw as failure. I told her we were done, really done, and she needed to leave. She stood there for a moment, and I could see her trying to decide whether to cry harder or get angry, and finally she chose angry. She said I was making a huge mistake, that I was throwing away something great, that I'd regret this when I was alone and struggling again. I closed the door while she was still talking. Over the next few weeks, things started changing fast. The collector's commission came through, $12,000 for a custom display cabinet with glass shelving and hidden LED lighting, and Patricia introduced me to 2 other galleries that wanted to carry my work. An arts and culture magazine did a piece on local artisans making museum-quality functional art, and somehow I ended up in it with a full-page photo of the jewelry box and a quote about how craftsmanship was becoming a lost art. My phone started ringing with inquiries, people wanting custom pieces, galleries wanting to set up meetings, interior designers asking about my availability, and for the first time in my career, I had more work than I could handle. I started looking at studio spaces, small places where I could work and maybe display a few pieces, and I found one in an old warehouse district that was being converted into artist lofts. The rent was more than I'd ever paid for anything, but with the commissions coming in and a waiting list starting to form, I could actually afford it. 2 months after the breakup, I signed the lease on my studio space and started setting up what would become my first real workshop and gallery combined. The place was in a renovated warehouse on the east side, one of those industrial buildings with exposed brick and huge windows that let in perfect natural light. It was bigger than I needed, but I had plans, had commissions lined up, and for the first time in my life, I could actually see a future doing what I loved without constantly worrying about money. I spent weeks getting the space ready, building workbenches, installing proper lighting, setting up a small display area near the front where people could see finished pieces. Patricia helped me connect with other artists in the building, and the whole place had this creative energy that I'd never experienced before. like everyone there was actually supporting each other instead of competing. The magazine article brought in more attention than I expected, and my website, which had been basically dead for years, suddenly started getting serious traffic. People were emailing me about commissions, asking about price ranges, wanting to see more of my work. I was getting requests for everything from jewelry boxes to full dining room tables, and I had to start turning people down or pushing timelines out 6 months because I couldn't keep up. That's when Rachel came into the picture. She was a marketing consultant who specialized in helping artists and small creative businesses build their brands, and she reached out after seeing the magazine article. She said she loved my work and thought I was seriously undercharging for what I was creating, that I needed better presentation and a real strategy for growth if I wanted to turn this into something sustainable. We met for coffee, and I expected some corporate pitch about social media metrics and brand synergy, but instead she just asked me about my process, about what inspired me, about why I chose wood over other materials. She got it in a way Monica never did, understood that the work itself was the point, not just the money it could make. We started working together, and she completely transformed how I presented myself to the world. She redid my website, made it actually look professional with high-quality photos of my pieces shot against clean backgrounds, wrote descriptions that made the work sound as special as it actually was without being pretentious. She set up an Instagram account for me and taught me how to document my process, how to show people the hours of work that went into each piece, the planning and the mistakes and the problem solving. She connected me with a photographer who specialized in artisan work, and we did a whole shoot of my existing pieces plus the new commission I was working on. Within a month, my following went from basically zero to over 5,000 people, and half of them were serious collectors and interior designers who actually had money to spend. Rachel also helped me prepare for my studio opening, which I'd planned as a small thing, maybe invite some friends and the people from the building, but she convinced me to make it an actual event. She reached out to local art blogs, invited journalists from the magazine that had featured me, made sure the other galleries I was working with knew about it, and even got a local wine bar to sponsor drinks for the evening. The night of the opening, I was nervous as hell, worried that nobody would show up or that it would be awkward standing around an empty studio. But within the first hour, the place was packed. There were collectors, other artists, people from the magazine, even a few interior designers who'd driven in from out of town specifically for this. Patricia came and brought some of her gallery clients, and I sold 3 pieces that night, including one I'd just finished that morning, a walnut writing desk with secret compartments that went for $8,000. Monica showed up too, which I didn't expect. She stood outside for a while. I could see her through the window, just watching the crowd and the success, and everything she told me would never happen. She looked different, tired maybe, or just less put together than usual, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She didn't come in, didn't try to talk to me, just stood there for about 10 minutes and then left. Part of me felt bad for her, but mostly I just felt nothing. She was part of a different life, a version of myself that didn't exist anymore, and I'd moved so far past that person that seeing her was like looking at an old photograph of someone you used to know. Rachel saw her too, asked if I was okay, and I realized I actually was. More than okay. Honestly, I was genuinely happy for the first time in years. Rachel and I started spending more time together outside of work stuff, and it happened gradually, naturally, without any of the pressure or judgment that had defined my relationship with Monica. We'd meet for coffee to discuss marketing strategy and end up talking for hours about art and life and what actually mattered to us. She came by the studio sometimes just to watch me work, said she found the process meditative, the way the wood changed under my hands, and she'd sit quietly in the corner reading or sketching while I carved and sanded. One day, I made her a small wooden pendant, nothing elaborate, just a simple piece of cherry wood shaped like a leaf with a leather cord. I gave it to her almost as a joke, told her it was payment for all her help, and she actually teared up. She said it was the most thoughtful gift anyone had ever given her, that she'd treasure it forever, and she wore it every single day after that, never took it off. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Monica had thrown away a museum-quality piece worth thousands of dollars because it didn't come in a Tiffany box, and Rachel cherished a $20 pendant because of what it meant and the fact that I'd made it specifically for her. Rachel asked me once why I worked with wood instead of something easier, something more profitable like metalwork or sculpture, and I told her the truth, that wood had a memory, that every piece told a story through its grain and its flaws and the way it had grown. She looked at me with this expression I'd never seen from Monica, like she actually understood, and said that's exactly why my work mattered, that in a world of mass-produced garbage designed to fall apart, I was making things that would outlive all of us. She understood that what I did wasn't just about making furniture or boxes. It was about creating something permanent, something real, something that connected people to the natural world and to the human hands that shaped it. 6 months after my studio opened, I had a waiting list of clients stretching into the next year, 3 galleries carrying my work regularly, and enough commissions to keep me busy and profitable indefinitely. I hired an assistant to help with the basic work, someone to handle sanding and finishing and material prep, while I focused on design and the detailed carving work that made each piece unique. Rachel's marketing had turned my craft into an actual sustainable business, and she'd done it without changing what made the work special in the first place, without pushing me to mass produce or cut corners or compromise my standards. We'd started dating officially by then, though it felt like we'd been together much longer, like we'd skipped all the awkward early relationship stuff and gone straight to being partners who understood each other. I made Rachel a jewelry box for her birthday, spent 2 months on it, made it from figured maple with ebony inlays in a pattern that looked like branches reaching across the surface. It had the same hidden compartments as the one I'd made for Monica, but this one felt completely different while I was making it. Felt like joy instead of obligation, like I was creating something for someone who would actually appreciate every detail. When I gave it to her, she opened every compartment carefully, taking her time, and found the little treasures I'd hidden inside. Small things that had meaning for us, a ticket stub from a museum we'd visited together, a dried flower from a walk we'd taken in the park, a small sketch she'd made of my hands while I was working. She cried, told me she'd never received anything so beautiful, and I believed her because I could see it in her face, that genuine appreciation for the work and the thought behind it. Monica tried to reach out one more time, sent a long email about how she'd been wrong, how she'd realized what she lost, how she wanted another chance to prove she could be different. I read it once and deleted it. She'd had her chance, hundreds of them actually over 3 years, and she'd spent all of them making me feel like I wasn't enough, like my work didn't matter, like I should be grateful she put up with my little hobby. Rachel never made me feel that way, never once suggested that what I did was anything less than important and meaningful. She saw value where Monica saw junk, saw an artist where Monica saw a failed corporate employee, saw a future where Monica saw a waste of time and potential. Looking back now, that Christmas morning when Monica threw my work in the trash was the best thing that could have happened to me. It forced me to stop accepting being treated like I didn't matter, forced me to put my work out there for people who would actually appreciate it, and ultimately led me to someone who saw me for who I actually was instead of who she wanted me to be. Monica lost me the moment she threw that jewelry box away, but she didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost someone who would have made her life more beautiful, more meaningful, more real. Rachel didn't just help me build a business. She helped me build a life worth living, one where my work mattered and I mattered, and that's worth more than any price tag could ever show. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.